The old man's knuckles had gone white around the handle of a small wooden case, and Lily Carter noticed it before she noticed anything else about him. The 6:15 out of Philadelphia had filled fast, commuters packed shoulder to shoulder in the aisle, and he was gripping a pole with one hand and that case with the other, swaying slightly with each lurch of the train, trying very hard not to look like a man who needed help. Lily was 17 and running on nerves and black coffee, an index card of her grandmother's handwriting tucked in her jacket pocket like a talisman. But none of that stopped her from standing the instant she saw him. "Take my seat, Grandpa," she said, soft enough that it felt like it was just between the two of them, though half the car probably heard it. The old man blinked, startled, then let out a short laugh that seemed to surprise even him. "Grandpa," he repeated, easing himself down into the seat with visible relief. "Haven't been called that on a train before. I like it. You looked like you needed the seat more than me." Lily grabbed the pole he'd let go of, glancing at the case now settled carefully on his lap, both his hands still resting protectively over the lid. "That looks important." "It is," he said, and didn't elaborate right away, the way people do when a subject still has some weight left in it. His name was Walter Hayes, 76 years old, and by the time the train had rattled through 2 more stops, he'd told her he was heading into the city to close out his late brother's clock repair shop for good. 40 years of business, gone quiet these past 6 months since his brother passed, the lease finally up at the end of the week. "What's in the case?" Lily asked, unable to help herself. Walter's hand rested on the lid a moment before he opened it. Inside, nestled in careful rows of velvet, sat dozens of tiny hand-carved wooden clocks, each one no bigger than a matchbox, each one engraved with a different name along its base. "My brother made these," Walter said quietly, "every time someone helped us through something hard. Fixed a leak we couldn't afford to fix ourselves, covered a bill during a slow month, sat with him the night his wife passed. He'd carve one of these and put their name on it. Said a person's kindness deserved to be kept somewhere permanent, not just remembered until you forgot." Lily stared at the little clocks, throat tight for reasons she couldn't fully explain. "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. He was a better man than me in most ways." Walter closed the case gently. "I'm just the one delivering what's left of him now." Lily hadn't meant to tell a stranger about the audition, but something about Walter's stillness, the way he listened like her words actually mattered, pulled it out of her anyway. "I'm auditioning for a culinary scholarship in the city," she admitted. "Full ride, if I get it. If I don't," she shook her head. "My family doesn't have the kind of money that gets you into that world otherwise. We never have." "What are you making them?" Lily pulled the worn index card from her jacket pocket, edges soft from years of handling, her grandmother's looping handwriting nearly faded in places. "Her recipe. She taught it to me during the hardest year our family ever had, the year my dad lost his job, the year we almost lost the house. She used to say cooking wasn't about having the fanciest ingredients. It was about making something good out of whatever you actually had." Walter studied the card a long moment, something soft crossing his weathered face. "Sounds like your grandmother and my brother would have gotten along." "You think I'm being unrealistic," Lily said, quieter now, voicing the fear she'd been carrying the whole ride, thinking a girl like me belongs in a kitchen like that. "I think," Walter said carefully, "that my brother never once measured a person's future by where they started. Only by what they were willing to build from it." He tapped the case on his lap. "Every name in here started somewhere hard. That's usually where the good stuff starts." The train slowed for the next station, and Walter did something that surprised even himself. He asked Lily to help him make one more stop before the auction house, at the shop itself, just this once, before it closed for good. The shop smelled like sawdust and old varnish, shelves lined with half-finished clocks nobody would ever collect now. In a back closet, Walter found a box he didn't remember packing. Dozens of letters, some decades old, written by his own adult children. letters he'd apparently kept without ever telling anyone he had them. "I didn't know these existed," he said, voice rough, sitting down heavily on an old workbench stool. "I thought I'd lost touch with all of them years ago. Turns out I just stopped looking." Lily sat beside him quietly while he read, the way he'd sat with her earlier, and understood that sometimes the kindest thing you can offer someone is simply staying in the room while they remember something they'd buried. She arrived at her audition an hour later, hands steady, in a way they hadn't been that morning, carrying more than her grandmother's recipe now. When the judges asked her to explain the dish, she didn't just plate it and step back. She told them about the year her family nearly lost everything, about a grandmother who taught her that good food starts with whatever you actually have, about a stranger on a train who reminded her that morning that beginnings don't determine endings. Months later, the acceptance letter arrived. Walter reopened part of his brother's old shop that same season, not as a business, but as a small free workshop where local teenagers could learn woodworking. The letters from his children finally answered, 3 of them now dropping by some Saturdays to help teach. At Lily's first family dinner after the scholarship news, Walter showed up with the wooden case, opened it, and pressed one small clock into her hand, freshly carved, her name along the base. "You gave me a reason to believe unfinished things can still become beautiful," he told her. Lily turned the little clock over in her palm, throat tight, understanding finally that giving up a train seat hadn't magically changed either of their lives. It had simply given 2 strangers enough time to remind each other that sometimes the smallest conversation is exactly enough courage to finish what you were about to abandon. If this story reminded you that kindness doesn't need to be big to change everything, share it with someone who needs that reminder today. Leave it a like, and stay a little longer. There's always another story worth telling.